So are going to move quickly through the next 40 minutes or so, in which I am going to be speaking to everybody about creating Ramadan traditions and bringing spirituality into our home at this time. And I wanted everyone to just take a moment, to those of us who are born Muslim and raised Muslim, to just think about what are the memories of Ramadan that stand out in our minds and in our hearts from our childhoods that make us feel warm and cozy and loved and safe and secure. So personally, I have very fond memories of Ramadan. I have memories of we had an intercom system in our home, and my mother would play the Quran on it at the Hajj time, and we would hear the Quran recitation going throughout the house when we would get up at Suhoor. I remember before going to work, my father would sit outside his bedroom at a table and chair, and he would be reciting his Quran before he left for the day. I remember coming home from school, being tired and hungry, and my mom would tell me to go rest up. And then after a little while, she would ask me to come in the kitchen to help her start preparing for iftar, and we would make the evening fruit salad. And then at the end of the month in Ramadan, when Eid was around the corner, we would prepare by ironing our clothes and laying out our glass bangles and having the henna on our hands drying and trying to sleep without the henna getting messed up on our hands, and waking up and seeing the community at Eid prayer and calling our relatives back home in Pakistan and wishing them Eid Mubarak. So these are the immediate memories that come to my head to my mind about my Ramadan growing up. And so as we bring up the next generation here in the United States of America and Canada, wherever we are in North America, it's really important to remember that Ramadan has to be a time of worship and self-reflection and meditation and connecting with the divine, but also it's got to be a time of joy and happiness and warm memories, and something that the kids are going to want to replicate when they grow up and run their own homes, inshallah. So I wanted to share a few of the traditions that our families, my family and a bunch of our co-families with whom we've raised our children, some of the traditions that we've established over the last couple of decades, actually. My eldest son is now 23 years old. My middle son is 21 years old, and my youngest is, mashallah, 17 years old. So these are traditions that we had for them when they were younger. So the first thing is that trying to get the kids excited about Ramadan and really making them feel that something special is coming our way. And so treating Ramadan like it's an honored guest. And the way you prepare for an honored guest is, you clean the home, you prepare nice foods, you freshen up, you get your energy so that you can be on your, highest level of best behavior and best level of hosting possible when your guest arrives. So we're the same way about Ramadan. And so some of that, what it might entail is that, first of all, purifying your intention, and every little thing you do, letting Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala know that, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, I am doing this because I want to make Ramadan a special time. I want to create special memories for my children. I want them to associate positivity with the month of Ramadan. And so, like in my home, a few weeks before Ramadan, in the month of Shaban, we do, of course, the Sunnah fasts of Shaban to start preparing for Ramadan. But we also start decluttering. We start freshening up the house, which might mean doing some touch-up painting around the home, doing some touch-up painting outside on the fence and the railings. I get my carpets washed. I have the carpet cleaners coming next week, inshallah. We also get our furniture, spruced up, get it shampooed. I have a friend who, right before Ramadan, she buys fresh bed sheets for all the beds in the house. That's this big, extravagant splurge that she does once a year. So before Ramadan, she gets fresh bed sheets for the home. We also, in California, alhamdulillah, it's good weather and springtime is here. And so we plant flowers, and we have a lot of flowers blooming outside the window. If you live in an apartment, you can have window boxes full of flowers or fresh plants around the home. So there's lots of different ways to, just kind of spruce up your home and get it ready for Ramadan. I also get my windows washed. I hire a window washing company that comes out and washes the windows inside and out. But the idea is to prepare for Ramadan, and then in Ramadan, all the focus on the home and the kitchen takes a back seat, and we focus instead on our ibadah. And so letting the kids know that we're getting ready and we're excited. So, and I know a lot of us, especially there are a lot of really fantastic bloggers out there now and a lot of beautiful posts on Pinterest where people do an amazing job of decorating their homes for Ramadan. I know we put up Ramadan lights. Our decorations are pretty simple, but people go all out and their homes are, mashallah, like something out of a magazine. And I think that is important to have the kids associate beauty and to recognize that it's a special time. But also we do want to show our families and our children that it's not just all about outward presentation. There's going to be a lot of inward work that's going to be happening during this month as well. So not letting it all be just about, having that Instagram-worthy home. Everything in its proper place. We have our priorities in their proper place. Okay, so that's one of the things that we do to prepare for Ramadan. There's 6 traditions that I'm going to talk about in addition for getting the home ready for Ramadan. And one of the things that I want to remind everybody about traditions is that it's not actually about the tradition itself. Every family can have different traditions for their Ramadan celebration. The importance isn't about what the actual tradition is. The importance is more about how that tradition makes you feel and how it makes your children feel. And that's going to be different for everybody. So we all have to kind of just take stock, sit back and think about what are the traditions that are going to be important in my family and what do I want to continue from what my parents used to do? And inshallah, what am I hoping maybe to add in addition to that and hoping that my children will continue afterwards when they have their own homes. Okay, I'm just looking at my notes so that I make sure I'm on track. So the first tradition that we have here in California, and I know many communities around America follow this tradition, is the tradition of moon sighting. It's important that our children are connected with nature, and with these days where everything's all about technology, showing the kids that we have a connection to the heavens, we have a connection to the greater universe. And moon sighting is a very, very fond tradition of ours. What we do is at the beginning of the month, when we think that the Ramadan moon, inshallah, can be sighted, even if the mosque has announced that Ramadan is starting tomorrow, even if the whole world is saying that, science has told us Ramadan is starting tomorrow, it's still a sunnah to go out and look for the moon with the naked eye. And so here what we do is families get in their cars and we go to this really nice scenic spot up in the hills. We have this panoramic view of the San Francisco skyline. And in the beginning, when we did this, like in the early 2000s, it was just a couple of us families that would show up with thermoses of hot chocolate and some treats for the kids. But now, mashallah, the last time before the COVID pandemic began, when we went for our moon sighting, there were like 200 people there, including a reporter who was there to do a news story on the moon sighting tradition. And all the families come, they bring baked goods, they bring treats, they bring whatever they can share, whether it's a lot or a little. They bring little like glow-in-the-light bracelets for the kids, little wands that light up in the dark. And you see the kids running around as the sun is going down. And everybody gathers at the scenic spot with their binoculars, trying to sight the new moon. And afterwards, everybody prays in Jamaat together, prays in the Maghrib prayer. And if the moon has been sighted, or if it's been announced that the moon's been sighted, then everybody wishes each other Ramadan Mubarak, and people go off for their respective Tarawih prayers. But regardless of whether the moon is actually sighted or not, it's the tradition itself that's very endearing and heartwarming. And one of the songs that we like to play in our car as we're driving up the hills to the scenic view, we blast this song. And by the way, I just wanted to let everybody know, whoever's watching this talk, you might want to have a pen and paper ready, because there's a lot of little information I'm going to give you guys that you might want to note down. And so this is a song that we like to play. It's available on YouTube. It's by Yusuf Islam, who used to be known as Cat Stevens. It's a song by Yusuf Islam called Ramadan Moon. So there's 2 versions of Ramadan Moon available. There's one that's a cappella without any musical instruments, and then there's one with music in it. So you can decide which one you want to play. It's really upbeat, it gets you in the mood, and it gets everybody feeling excited and celebratory. And One of the things that I want to talk about moon sighting is, I know with the pandemic right now, a lot of us are in our own little silos. Last year, my family and I went out for moon sighting to a private spot without telling other people about it, because everybody was quarantining. And even at that spot, we managed to see a couple of other Muslims whom we didn't know, who had also come to the same spot to sight the moon, mashallah. But one of the things that's important about moon sighting, and inshallah, may the pandemic end soon, inshallah, and we can all be with community once again, is the thing that's important is the connection with community. And I know that we're all different personalities. Some of us are introverts, some of us are extroverts, some of us are ambiverts. Some of us have had bad experiences in our communities or with our families, or, as we're trying to reconnect with our religion, or maybe we've converted into Islam, maybe we've had some experiences that have turned us off. And so there's some people who can have this attitude of like, you know what, I'm not interested in being part of the community. I just want to do my own thing. Or, I'm just going to be with my own family. And I cannot emphasize enough how important it is, especially in the early years, for kids to feel connected to a greater community, to feel that there are other people who understand what they're going through, and that they have fellow co-religionists, co-Muslims, who I think, believe like they do, and understand their experiences. And it's important to build this community bond for our children, because we want our children to feel the sting of separation, God forbid, that if they ever separate from the Muslim community, that they feel it. And I know of a few adults who, for whatever reason, are no longer practicing Muslims. They have decided not to be Muslim, don't consider themselves Muslim. But it's really all the other Muslims around the world are doing. And so we want that for our children, aside from, of course, believing in the truth, believing in La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah, we also want them to feel part of the greater ummah, and the moon sighting tradition can help bring that about. Another thing we do to help the kids get excited about the month of Ramadan is we read them books when they're younger. And I want to share some of the books that I have in my collection that you may not know about. So this is a book called The White Nights of Ramadan by Maha Addasi. This is about a family in Kuwait, and it's a Kuwaiti tradition, and called Gurjian. And it's a tradition, a Ramadan tradition that's in the Persian Gulf countries. So it's a nice book to read if you wanted to do some storytelling every night in the month of Shaban leading up to Ramadan. This is a book called Muslim Child. It's by Hina Khan, Understanding Islam Through Stories and Poems. It is an anthology of short stories and poems about Muslim children. However, there is one story in here, I think it's called Aziza's First Fast. Aziza's First Fast. So there's a nice short story in here about a little girl fasting for the first time. This is a book called Celebrating Ramadan. It's a photographic odyssey. It's a lot of pictures in here, but it follows a family in New Jersey. I think the child might be Bosnian, maybe Egyptian, I'm not sure. But it follows a child and his family and his community in the month of Ramadan. I think it's from like year 2000, a while ago. But it's a nice book and explains Ramadan traditions really well. This is a classic now. It's called Ramadan by Suhaib Hamid Ghazi, illustrated by Omar Rayyan. Beautiful illustrations in it. A good book to add to public school libraries if you wanted. I absolutely love the illustrations in here. They're really gorgeous. But Ramadan is a good book. Then, of course, we have Hina Khan. Some people often mistake me for her. I wish I was her. She's, mashallah, a prolific children's author. She has written the Curious George book about Ramadan, which I have, but I wasn't able to find it tonight to share with you. But she also has this book called Night of the Moon, a Muslim holiday story. So it's a nice book for anticipation of Ramadan. This is a book called A Party in Ramadan by Asma Mubinuddin, illustrated by Laura Jacobson. It's about a little girl who has to go to a party while she's fasting, and she feels a little left out and she's hungry, and it's a very nicely told story, worth reading to your kids. This is a book called Layla's Lunchbox. It's about a little girl who is not bringing lunch during the month of Ramadan to school, and her teacher is concerned and sends a note home asking why she's not bringing lunch to school, and she's nervous about how to explain it to her teacher. Nice story. It's called Layla's Lunchbox, a Ramadan story by Reem Farouqi, illustrations by Leah Lyon. This is a book called Ramadan Moon by Naima B. Robert, and it's illustrated by Shireen Adil. It's done beautifully. I really like the illustrations in here. Sweet story. Ramadan Moon. This one is my favorite, the one I'm going to share next. If there's one book that you're going to read to public school kids or preschoolers or kindergartners, nothing sums up Ramadan and the experience of fasting like this book. And it's a very simple story, but very well done. The illustrations are nice and big, and the language is simple. It's called Zaki's Ramadan Fast. If you decide to look for it, Ramadan is spelled D-H. It's not just a D, so if you're going to look for it on Amazon. There are not that many copies out there now, so if you find it, nab it. Worth owning. It's a hardcover. So it's by Ann P. L. Muslimani. I believe she's in Seattle. And the illustrator is Erica L. Butler. Really enjoy this story. It's about a biracial family. The mother is, I think, Pakistani and the father's African-American, or it might be reversed. The mother might be African-American, the father Pakistani. But it's a very, very well done story. This book is called Moon Watchers, Shireen's Ramadan Miracle, written by Raza Jalali, and it's illustrated by Anne Sibley O'Brien. It's about a Shia family. And it talks about the tradition of going to sight the moon and trying to figure out if Ramadan has begun or not. And I'm an avid children's book collector. I collect all the classics, even from mainstream publishing. And one of my favorite books for infants is Goodnight Moon, which pretty much everyone knows about. It's a classic. But this is a Muslim book called Under the Ramadan Moon. And I felt like it had kind of the same rhythm and the same cadence that Goodnight Moon had to it. I enjoyed reading it when my kids were younger. Under the Ramadan Moon by Sylvia Whitman, illustrated by Sue Williams. It's a nice story with very little script on each page and good illustrations. Well done. Good quality books. So these are books, I think, worth sharing with your children and to get them excited about Ramadan coming around the corner. Okay, so moving on from moon sighting and cleansing the home and getting ready for Ramadan. And reading books to the kids. Another tradition that we have in our family is, of course, decorating the house. I've seen people get creative in many ways. Our way of decorating the home, like I told you, is to do a nice decluttering job, do some touch-up painting, get the windows washed, get the carpets cleaned and the furniture shampooed. And also, I like to do something that a friend of mine did she calls it the Ramadan chain of kindness. And it's a very simple concept and it's very easy to do. So what she does is she has a little can, and in the can she has strips of construction paper. And anytime anyone in their family notices any member of the family doing something kind or generous or thoughtful, they make a note of it. They write it down on that strip of construction paper, and then they loop it up and they connect it to the next ring. So all these rings are going around the room, decorating the room, going around, and every single ring has a good deed written on it. So it might say something like, helped mommy change the diaper, helped daddy make the salad, brought mommy or brought older brother a glass of water. And one thing that I noted that my friend did is that they did not write down the name of the person who did the good deed. They just mentioned what the good deed was. And that was for a deeper spiritual reason and a spiritual lesson, which is that she wanted to discourage Riyah, discourage that disease of the heart, which is where we do good deeds or good acts in order to impress other people. So constantly reminding ourselves that, no, what we do is for Allah, and we don't need credit for it, and we don't need acknowledgement. We don't need to have our name noted down. So the rings that go around the room would say things like, help mommy change a diaper, brought older brother a glass of water, help daddy prepared the salad for dinner, you know, swept the front sidewalk in front of the house, whatever little or big thing anybody might do to be helpful around the home. And so she called that the Ramadan chain of kindness. Another thing that we do to decorate, and a lot of families are doing this now, this is back in the early 2000s, a friend of mine created this, and I really love it. It's very old now, because my eldest is 23, so I think this is probably 20 years old. It's called the Ramadan calendar. And so the way it works is it's kind of like a Christmas advent calendar. There's like 30 pockets, 1, 2, 3. I've already buttoned on the crescent moon and stars with the numbers on them just to show you what it looks like. But basically, you start out the month, I hang this up by the dining table, and you start out the month with none of these on. And every evening at iftar, I have a little treat, or used to have a little treat for the kids in here. So it could be a little Kit Kat, or a little toy car, or stickers, or money, fun little treats in here. And we'd also put strips of paper with 3 names of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, so that by the end of the month, the kids have been introduced to all 99 names. And then one of the kids would have the honor of buttoning on either the crescent moon or the star. This is very simple. There's patterns out there on the internet where people can learn how to sew these for themselves. And this is just a tradition that we had and many of our friends had. And one year I learned the importance of having traditions when I couldn't find my Ramadan calendar. I had put it away a year earlier, and then when Ramadan came around, I couldn't find it. And so I told my kids, you know what, kids, you guys are going to get your treat at iftar time. Don't worry about it. I'm definitely giving you your treat, but I can't find the Ramadan calendar right now. And inshallah, we'll find it. When we do find it, we'll put it up. But our first iftar, we won't do it with the Ramadan calendar, but you will get your treat. And my kids, mashallah, they had a good attitude about it. I think my eldest one at that time was 7 and the middle one was 5. And they were like, yeah, that's fine. But that evening when they were both going to bed, I heard them going up the stairs, and I overheard the older son telling the younger brother, you know, I don't know what it is, but it just doesn't feel like Ramadan this year. And that really nagged at me. It really bothered me that he was feeling that way. And so while they were in bed, I continued to rummage and look for the Ramadan calendar. And alhamdulillah, I found it. And I ended up calling up to them, oh, by the way, you guys, because they were still awake. By the way, guys, just want to let you know, I found our Ramadan calendar. And the cheers that erupted from their room, where they were like, yay, thank you, Mama. We're so happy you found it. You know, really told me a deep lesson about how important traditions are, because it wasn't just about the treat. They were still going to get the treat. That they weren't going to miss out on that. But something about the tradition of Ramadan calendar and just knowing that they weren't going to have it that year, you know, obviously life goes on and we all deal with disappointments and it's okay. But at the same time, it did show me that traditions are important, and it's important to have traditions that you can actually do every year and that you can replicate, that it's not going to be hit or miss. You know, don't do something so fancy or so huge that you can't do it again the next year. Something simple and easy for the kids that they can come to rely on, because kids rely on routine, rhythm, and repetition. Routine, rhythm, and repetition is very important for children as they're growing up. Okay, so Ramadan calendar, decorating the home. There's a young girl, a nine-year-old or maybe 10-year-old girl right now. She has a website that you guys might want to check out. It's simple. She only has 2 banners out right now, but it's called Inaya Noor Khan. That's her name, INAYANOORKHAN. So InayaNoorKhan.com. And she has created these really sweet banners. One says Happy Eid and one says Happy Ramadan or Ramadan. It has a llama on it. It's really cute. And if you buy it from her, she mails it out to you with these stakes so that you can put it out in front of your home, letting the community in the neighborhood know that you're celebrating Ramadan. I have another friend who would put a crescent and a star hang up in her window facing the street. And she would say, like, suppose her family's name is Mukhtar. It isn't, but suppose her family's name was Mukhtar. The sign said, the Mukhtar family wishes you a happy Ramadan. So there's a nice way of including the community in our celebration. Okay, the 4th tradition that we had is a tradition of baking cookies for the neighbors. Now, this is something that we started after 9/11. in the year 2001. At that time, Ramadan came around middle of November and it went into middle of December, same time that people were getting ready to celebrate Christmas and New Year's. And I had been living on my street at that time for 4 years, and I had never received any kind of treats or packages from any of my neighbors at Christmas time. And that year we were feeling really down about what had happened on 9/11. And we felt the need to reach out with some positive gestures to our neighbors. And so I still have the card that we created, 20 years old, it's a little faded now, but we printed out this message on cardstock and cut it out with decorative scissors. And we baked crescent-shaped and star-shaped cookies that we decorated with green sugar, and we put them in cellophane bags and tied it with ribbon and tied this note to it. And this is what the note said: "To our neighbors and friends on St. Pierre Way," which is where we lived at the time, "Happy Ramadan. The holy month of Ramadan is celebrated by over 1.2 billion Muslims all over the world. During the month of Ramadan, the 9th month of the Islamic lunar calendar, Muslims abstain from food and drink during the daylight hours. Through fasting, Muslims learn to appreciate all of their blessings, as well as feel the hunger and thirst of those less fortunate. Ramadan is an opportunity for family and friends to spend time together and to show kindness to those around them. Ramadan is a time for Muslims to abstain from the physical comforts in order to elevate themselves to a higher spiritual plane. It is a time of renewal and recommitment to self-betterment. It is our hope that this Ramadan brings a sense of peace and hope throughout the world." And because 9/11 had just happened, we added this line, which I no longer add. "During this time of international grief and confusion," we made a point of using the word international, not just national, because the pain and grief wasn't just in America, it was all over the world as a result of the wars that came after 9/11. "During this time of international grief and confusion, this is our humble attempt at reaching out to one another. Wishing you joy during your holidays and a happy Ramadan, the Mukhtar family." And then it had our address at the bottom. So this was a card that we attached to our package of cookies, and the boys and I went through the neighborhood and we delivered them to all the homes, put them in their mailboxes or on their front doors. And then we came home, we were really excited, waiting to see how people react to getting these treats in their mailboxes. And there was radio silence. We didn't get any responses. We didn't get a single thank you. We didn't get a single acknowledgement. Nobody told us we received your cookies, that we liked them. And it was very disheartening and it was very disappointing. But it was a reminder, again, that whatever we do it for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We don't do it for people. We don't do it for credit. We don't do it for the pat on the back. And, obviously our spirits were a little low that nobody seemed to appreciate what we had done, but we accepted it. But then guess what happened? That Christmas, our mailboxes were overflowing with packages from the neighbors. All of a sudden we were receiving treats and cookie packages and cake packages from our neighbors, which had never happened in the 4 years before. So I think our gesture had motivated our neighbors to also reach back out, and it was very appreciated. And that was our way of knowing that they did appreciate what was done, what we did as Muslims for them, reaching out to them. So reach out to your neighbors, give them treats. During the time of the pandemic, we have the cookies baked from a professional bakery and attach a note that says this is from such and such bakery on such and such street, so that they know it's not baked in our kitchen, because people might be nervous about eating things that are baked in your home right now. And then, deliver them and don't expect anything from anyone, only from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And inshallah, you'll see the reward in this life and in the next, inshallah. Okay, the fifth tradition that we have is the tradition of donating to the food bank. So we live in the county of Contra Costa County here, and we have a food bank. And the food bank says that they have no problem meeting the needs of the poor and the hungry during the time of Thanksgiving and Christmas. But the rest of the year, it's a little hard, to make sure that people are donating food throughout the year. They're very grateful that Ramadan moves throughout the year, because they know that when Ramadan is coming, that month, we are going to be, the Muslims are going to be showing up with a lot of food for the food bank. Now, we had originally asked members of our Islamic Center to donate food for the Contra Costa Food Bank. And we told them exactly what was needed. And people had really good intentions and they wanted to do it, but we found that the good intentions weren't necessarily being followed through on. So then we came up with another idea, and what we did was the kids went and bought the groceries, the pantry staples that were needed, like the cereal and the granola and the powdered milk and the cans of beans and tuna and whatnot. And they brought them to the Islamic Center, and all the kids took turns bagging them in different bags and then rolling up the bags, stapling them shut, attaching a note to it that said $5. And then at Jummah prayer, after Jummah prayer, we sold that to the community, letting them know that they could buy this bag of groceries for $5, which we then were going to put in the big canisters that the food bank had delivered to the Islamic Center. Well, people were more than willing to do that. They may forget to go out and buy the groceries themselves, but they were more than willing to buy something that was readily available for them right then and there. People bought multiple bags of groceries. And so we would then put all the bags of groceries in these big canisters from the food bank. And then at the end of the month, the Contra Costa Food Bank sent out a truck to get all the donations. And a couple of times we even had the media there filming the event. And it was a way of showing our children that, you know, Ramadan is also a time of reaching out and taking care of people who are less fortunate than us. A lot of people like to say, oh, we fast to feel the hunger of the poor and the needy. But that's not necessarily true, because even the poor and the needy have to fast, right? We may end up feeling their pain and understanding what it's like, but it's not necessarily the reason. So we don't tell the kids that that's the reason you fast. We fast because Allah commanded it. So whether we understand why or why not, we fast because Allah said fasting is prescribed for you. And so, but at the same time, helping those less fortunate is a big part of our religion. It's not only just part of Ramadan, but it is nice to make that part of the tradition. Okay, and then the last tradition that we celebrate and make a big deal of. Oh, and by the way, we had a sheikh who told us that there is a secret in giving charity. And if you knew what that secret was, you wouldn't make a single dua, a single supplication, without also giving charity at the same time. And so we teach our children that, so that when they do give charity and they, you know, give sadaqah and they donate to the food bank, or they have sadaqah jars in their bedroom and they put coins in it, that every time they do that, they make a dua, a supplication for whatever they need in their lives. Okay, the sixth tradition is the tradition of waking up on Eid morning. It's really important to make Eid morning super special for our kids. We're competing with Christmas and Easter and Valentine's Day and New Year's Day and Halloween, and there's just so much that is like trying to pull at our kids and show them that, hey, look at us, we're so much more exciting and fun than you guys. Eid morning can blow everything else out of the water, depending on how we decide to celebrate it. So obviously prayer is a big part of it, and celebration is a big part of it. And I have different friends who've done different things. I have one friend who's a single mom, and she has a son and a daughter, and so she would go out before Eid, and she would leave her kids with one of us and not tell them where she's going, and she would go and buy all their favorite things. Like her daughter liked painting, so she would buy her paint sets. Son liked, you know, puzzles, so she would buy him like some kind of mechanical puzzle. You know, a new hijab for her daughter, new socks for her son, or a kufi for her son. Both of them got new socks. Each of them got their own misbaha, maybe a new copy of the Quran, maybe a book that they would like to read, chocolates, some kind of treat. And she would make them each a beautiful basket of their own. And then the son and the daughter would wake up on Eid morning, and miraculously during the night, this beautiful Eid basket had appeared at the foot of their beds. And they would wake up to this Eid basket that their mom had created for them. Something my husband and I like to do is we would go out and rent a helium tank and from a party rental store. And when the kids were asleep, we would blow up tons of shimmery balloons, like glittery, sparkly balloons. And we would attach glittery, sparkly ribbons to the balloons. And then we would stuff the boys' bedroom with these beautiful glittery balloons. And we would leave a trail of these balloons going out of their bedroom, down the staircase, to the family room, and then where the balloons ended, there'd be their pile of Eid gifts. And so they would wake up on Eid morning to this magical vision. And we found a video recently where I had filmed them waking up on Eid morning, And, they're like coming out through the streamers, through the ribbons, and they're like, Mama, what is this? Like playing with the balloons. And then coming down the staircase and finding their package of their pile of gifts for Eid morning. So that's a nice tradition for the kids to wake up to something special. And then, of course, go be with the community, inshallah. Once the pandemic is over, we'll be seeing more of our family and friends. And let's see. So this is really in the early years, when the kids are younger, like up till the age of 14, where all of these traditions of treats and candies and sparkle and glitter and decoration, all very important. And then, of course, gradually as they grow older, we move away from the whole Santa Claus is coming to Ramadan idea and really make our focus more about private time with Allah, community time with Allah, reading the Quran, reciting the Quran, understanding the Quran, listening to beautiful recitations of the Quran in the home, making this a time of really spiritual rejuvenation, and letting the kids know that inshallah we're inshallah coming out of Ramadan cleansed, ready to start life again on a fresh new foot, and hopefully we've been forgiven inshallah for our past mistakes. And it's a time of hope. It's a time of immense hope, inshallah. Some of the things that little traditions in the home that can help bring about spirituality is to have a special place in the home where you do your ibadah and your children know that that's a special place. So a place that's set up with, nice candles that are scented, your misbah, your Quran, your favorite prayer mat. It's a place where you sit in etikaf, where you sit and worship, and the kids know that this is a special place, a place of barakah. Eating sunnah foods, so eating dates and black seeds and having honey in your milk and talking about how the Prophet ﷺ liked all of these things. When we want to relax or be entertained, in our home, we don't watch popular culture television or listen to popular culture music during the month of Ramadan. That's a time of kind of disconnecting from the dunya. So when we want to relax, we listen to nasheeds, playing spiritual songs from some very, very talented artists out there. Ideally, the month of Ramadan shouldn't be a drastic change from the way you regularly live your life. It shouldn't be this attitude of like, oh, we're going to be really just good, pious Muslims right now, and then we'll go back to everything that we used to do before as soon as Ramadan's over. And then the effect can be like, oh, I can't wait for Ramadan to be over so I can go back to real life. We don't want that. We don't want to have this idea that we're only, quote unquote, Ramadan Muslims. Inshallah, the idea is really to build upon whatever we take on in the month of Ramadan. And remember that we don't want to lecture our kids too much about, you're fasting, you better be good, or you better not behave like that. You're fasting and Allah doesn't like it. We don't need to lecture our kids. It's more important that our actions should speak louder than our words. Maybe we can show our kids that we're self-reflecting, that, oh, I need to control my temper, I'm fasting, or I'm sorry for speaking harshly, I'm fasting and I need to, be more patient. Letting the kids know that we're aware and we're mindful of how fasting should be affecting us. And also talking about being sad about Ramadan being over, letting the kids know that this is a very special time. I have a friend who weeps every year when Ramadan comes to an end, and her kids have grown up seeing that, and they know that Ramadan is a very, very special time. And it's a time when they disconnect from social media and they disconnect from, popular entertainment and completely focus on their Lord. And let me see if there was a couple of last few things I wanted to share before we do Q&A. There are a few hadiths that I think are really important to talk to our kids about, to introduce our kids to. And certain things we can tell our kids about Ramadan that will put them in the right mind frame. One is, I've had people say to me, oh my gosh, if I had to fast, I'd probably go in the bathroom and sneak a cookie when nobody's looking. That could be an attitude of people who don't understand Ramadan or aren't Muslim. And so we can talk to our kids about that, fasting is really one of the most intimate forms of worship, because of the 5 pillars, every single thing we do, we have witnesses to it. So when we say the Shahada, somebody hears us say it. When we give zakat, somebody receives our zakat. When we go on Hajj, we're part of a larger group and people see you doing the Hajj rites. When you pray, the 5 prayers, you often pray in Jamaat, or people see you praying on your prayer mat. But fasting is the one act of worship that nobody really knows you're doing it except for you and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And your angels, of course. You can fool people all you want. Ultimately, in the end, the only one who really knows if you're fasting is you and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that's why it's such an intimate act of worship, and it's such a sincere act of worship. Because really, you can get away with cheating. Everyone can get away with cheating. And the fact we don't shows our taqwa, it shows that our God consciousness, and the fact that we're aware of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so another thing we like to talk to our kids about is that fasting does teach us discipline, and it teaches us discipline in that if we can avoid the halal, like eating bread is halal and drinking water is halal, but we are keeping ourselves from the halal in the month of Ramadan, right? When we're fasting. So if we can keep ourselves away from the halal, then inshallah, how much easier should it be for us to be able to stay away from the haram? So to be able to stay away from, cigarettes and alcohol and drugs and, hookah and all the things that are makruh or haram in life, it should be easier for us to stay away from those things if we can actually discipline ourselves to stay away from the halal. We remind the children that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves the scent of a fasting person's breath, even if it doesn't smell too good to us right now when we're fasting. We remind the kids that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves good character, that it's not just about giving up food and drink. A couple of hadiths that I like to tell them in English is where the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Whoever does not give up lies and evil actions, Allah is not in need of his leaving his food and drink." Whoever does not give up lies and evil actions, Allah is not in need of his leaving food and drink. So if we're leaving food and drink, but we're still backbiting and we're still gossiping and we're still lying and we're still cussing and we're still fighting, Allah doesn't need us to give up our food and drink. Obviously, we're still going to fast, but the idea is that it's about something more than just giving up food and drink. Another hadith Qudsi that I like, a hadith Qudsi is the hadith that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, but it wasn't part of revelation. It didn't become part of the Quran. Allah said to him, "Every good deed of the son of Adam is for himself, except fasting. For fasting is mine, and it is I who give reward for it." Every good deed of the son of Adam is for himself, except fasting. For fasting is mine, and it is I who give reward for it. So reminding kids again that this is really, it's between you and Allah. Whether you fast or not, it's between you and Allah is going to reward you for it. We'll give you treats and, parties and honor you, but that's not why you're fasting. You're fasting for Allah. The other hadith I like to share that reminds us that we're made up of both bodies and souls is the hadith Nabwi, where it's a hadith that the Prophet ﷺ said, "The fasting person has 2 joys to delight him. When he breaks his fast, he is joyful with his meal, and when he meets his Lord, he is joyful with his fast." The fasting person has 2 joys to delight him. When he breaks his fast, he is joyful with his meal, and when he meets his Lord, he is joyful with his fast. So reminding the kids when they eat that date or they eat that treat and they're really happy with their glass of water at iftar time or their special drink, that look, as happy as you are right now, that's just one of your joys. The other joy is when you're going to meet your Lord on the day of judgment, and you're going to feel even more joy for this fast that you just did. So constantly bringing it back to the real reason that we're fasting. And, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make this Ramadan beautiful for all of us, make it easy for all of our children, fill our homes with peace and fill it with light and noor and barakah and blessings and all the good things that any of us could wish for ourselves and our loved ones. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless us with health and protection and safety. And I hope that some of these ideas and tips that I shared with you allow you to create a joyful Ramadan in your home with your children. Oops, I can't hear you. I think you might be muted.
Yes, thank you. Barakallah fiki and ameen to the dua. SubhanAllah, so many beautiful, beautiful, examples and lessons for us to implement, and so practical, mashallah. I specifically really love the moon sighting tradition that you did. Beautiful. It's something that, my husband and I always talk about it and we want to do it. But just living in New York, we're always like, oh, it's cloudy, or the masjid announced it. But I love the fact that you still did it, regardless if the masjid announced it or not. And inshallah, we're looking forward to doing this with our boys this Ramadan. Jazakallah khair for the idea. It's beautiful. So
and I forgot to mention that we also do it for Eid as well. So we begin Ramadan by going moonsighting, and then we go moonsighting again for Eid.
Inshallah. So I'll read some of the questions. Sister Nilofer asked, my husband and I are almost empty nesters. Our 4 girls are all grown up, mashallah. We did everything in Ramadan for their sake, and now we kind of feel like it's hard to keep the decor and tradition alive in our home now. Any suggestions?
So that's really serendipitous to get that question, but because I am struggling with the exact same thing. My older 2 are pretty much out of the home, and I have a young 17-year-old who's also doing college now. And same thing. I actually, we don't bring out the Ramadan calendar anymore. And I was really sad the year I realized that the kids didn't really need it. And same with the string of lights that we used to always put up before Ramadan began. So now our focus really, it's a lot simpler. I like planting flowers, and I like having really nice scented candles or bukhur in the home, oud in the home, itar in the home, and making sure the home is just clean and decluttered, and playing beautiful recitations of the Quran and beautiful, there's a long dua by Sheikh Muhammad Jibril, which I forgot to mention in my talk, that's on YouTube. I think he did it on the night of Laylatul Qadr. I can't remember if he did it in Cairo or in Jerusalem, but it's a really beautiful long dua in which he cries. We play that also right before iftar. So just filling the home with the sounds of Ramadan and the scents of Ramadan. And it's not necessary to have all the decor. If you want to bring it out, you want to put in that effort, go for it. But sometimes it can be as simple as just having some new flowers and some pots and vases around the house.
Okay. Brother Gohar asks, how can our masajid and centers help you during month of Ramadan to encourage them?
Can you repeat that question? Help who?
How can our masajid and centers help youth during month of Ramadan to encourage them?
Okay, so the most important thing about our youth, and their connection to the masajid is that they should feel welcome. That's it. So if a kid is walking into the masjid and the first thing he or she is being told, your shoes don't go over there, they go over there, or don't run around, or don't make so much noise, or brother, get out of the way. If they're getting scolded or yelled at the second they walk into an Islamic center, which has been the experience of some young people, as they've shared with me, it can be very off-putting. So to remember that whoever is coming to the masjid, no matter what age, is a guest of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and we're welcoming them to the practice of their religion, and that they should feel connected to the ummah. So, it doesn't have to be anything super extravagant, just a lot of love, a lot of smiles, and good food. Like if you can have yummy treats every now and then, if you could have like a big carafe of hot chocolate, or, halal, marshmallows set out for people to make their own hot chocolates, just something so that they have fond memories of coming to the masjid. That's it. It doesn't have to be anything really over the top.
So for our masjid, what exactly what you're saying about the treats, one brother would bring ice cream after Tarawih. And even now, like my boys last year were so sad they couldn't go to the masjid. They're like, oh, we're missing out on Brother Hamza's, ice cream treats.
Yeah.
Something simple.
Yeah. Something. And what is that saying? The fastest way to a person's heart is through the stomach. Them yummy treats.
Any other questions? Let me see anything. So I think this is it. So I have a question. So our kids are similar in age, as we've discussed before, mashallah. How do you get the boys, how when they were little, it's so easy to just wow them, right? So easy to impress them. And as they become teenagers or preteen, how do you still get them excited and motivated for Ramadan?
So, Alhamdulillah, you know, what I found as they get older is really, it's more about their suhbah now, you know, like if they have, so I only have boys, so they have a lot of yunkles, what I call yunkles, young uncles or funkles, fun uncles, you know, young people in the community who are excited about Ramadan, but they're older than my boys. And so my boys look up to these young fathers or these young husbands, and they're excited about Ramadan. And so that, you know, that spirit, that's contagious, right? And so for young women, it could be having like older sister figures in the community and just planning gatherings with friends and family, people that we can meet with. That's enough to get people excited. And baking, you know, my kids will ask me, what are you going to be baking for Ramadan? You know, because they know there's certain things that I'll do in the kitchen that I don't necessarily make the time for the rest of the year. Again, doesn't have to be anything super over the top or expensive or timely. It can, sometimes you'll be surprised. It's the simplest things that will touch our kids' hearts.
Inshallah.
What were some of your fondest memories of Ramadan with your kids from growing up?
We would decorate the house. That's something that they love. First, we would deep clean, and they would help me deep clean, and then we would decorate the house, and we would play nasheed. And decorate the house. So that's like something that we love doing. But I think it hit me last year when my youngest said, Mama, you know, I'll help you clean and everything, but we don't really need to decorate.
Isn't that interesting? I noticed that too. As my kids got older, something about, you know, that hadith of Hazrat Ali radiallahu anhu is so true, where he says, it's so brilliant. It completely is in line with child rearing philosophy that we know even by modern standards. He said the first 7 years, play with your kids. The second 7 years, teach your kids. The third 7 years, be their friend, right? So 0 to 7, we just play with them. Don't lecture them. Just let them honor their childhood. 7 to 14 is the time to just teach. Everything you want to get into their heads and their hearts and their souls, you get it in from 7 to 14. And then 14 to 21, you're their friend, which means that you respect them, you respect their opinion, you listen to them, you consult with them, you treat them as young adults, right? And then inshallah, after the age of 21, inshallah, they will be pleasing to us. And so I've noticed that after the age of 14, kids are like, you know what? I don't really need all the hoopla. Just give me some good food and, you know, let's have our time for ibadah. And making ibadah time really beautiful in the home, that's really special. Like making it clear that we're disconnecting from the dunya, but we're not disconnecting from the dunya and making the home a boring, dry place. You know, the home is still beautiful and it's alive and it's full of light and it's full of dhikr, and it's full of Quran, and it's full of good foods, inshallah. So, and sharing, you know, with the community members.
And I think with pandemic hitting us, it was just such a disconnect, right? And I mean, for us to, obviously you cannot get the same masjid experience, but we did make a masalla at home.
Right.
And then after we prayed Tarawih together last Ramadan, we listened to a lecture together. That's something the boys really enjoyed because we did spend quality time together.
Yeah.
So just trying to find the blessings within all the tests that we have right now.
Yeah. And if there's like, you know, you can make a note of certain podcasts that you might want to listen to that you don't have time to right now. Like Sheikh Hamza Yusuf has a great podcast called Sacred Texts. Sacred and then TEXTS. Wonderful podcast. All the episodes are like maybe less than half an hour. And he touches on different subjects that are very, very important for all of us to learn about. And, you know, Imam Wissam Sharif, his last name I believe is spelled Sharief. He has a series of videos on YouTube about the lives of the prophets. So I remember one year, the kids, you know, really enjoyed listening to the lives of the prophets, the stories of their lives. So there's, you know, different things we can fill our brains with when we're not busy worshiping, you know. Even our entertainment can be worship, inshallah. And learning.
Exactly, inshallah. Sister Nilofer said some of our precious memories are running to Tarawih and getting some ice cream or treats on the drive home.
Absolutely. Yeah, same here. Yeah. So if we're not going out, you can create, ice cream sundae stations at home for the kids to partake in.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to that, inshallah.
How is the COVID restrictions in California? Are you having Taraweeh?
So we at our local Islamic center are allowed to have 100 people register for Taraweeh prayers, and it's outdoors.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, so it's going to be outdoors. Alhamdulillah, we have, pretty good weather here at this time. And so after 100 people, it'll be closed.
Okay.
And the community really wants Taraweeh prayers back. And I'm on the board of our local Islamic center. It's the number one question we get asked, like, when are you opening up again? And so inshallah, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala unite us all in health and happiness soon. Where people are missing each other. And I think we're going to appreciate each other a lot more, inshallah, once we're together again.
Inshallah. Okay, it's 9:30 now, and barakallah fiki, Sister Hina. It's lovely having you with us tonight. And it was an honor meeting you, and inshallah, we look forward to having more programs with you, inshallah.
The same here. It was an honor meeting you as well. Thank you so much for inviting me.
You're welcome. Okay. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Please keep me in your du'as.
You too, please. You keep us in your du'as as well. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum.